You know, I considered not doing the daily recap today. I considered it. I was thinking, there's just one game. We're going to just talk about one game for a whole video. Who's going to care, But for my fellow Canadians, people who have nothing else to watch, need something to fall asleep to, and anyone else who cares, this one's for you. Because I saw the chatter. I know people weren't looking forward to this game, and you know what? I get it. Well, we'll get into it. It was really bad. Welcome to day 17 of the World Cup Daily Recap. I'm Adrian. Let's talk about this game, and I'll also tell you, as a Canadian, why this is so unbelievable, and I'm sure many of you can relate, or would like to relate. So first off, my South African members of the Rabona TV community, I love you. This will be a bit Canada-centric, but I will do my best to serve both sides where I can. And coming into this one, well, if you saw my preview, I wasn't all that confident. I knew Canada was capable of beating South Africa, but was also scared that South Africa's form was starting to trend to a dangerous level, that they would start resembling the team from the 2023 AFCON that was so dangerous. Because that's the team that I always think of when I think of South Africa. The South Africa that's thriving, the South Africa that had a point deduction and still topped the group ahead of Nigeria and Benin in qualifying for this tournament. But at this World Cup, we hadn't seen the best face. We hadn't really seen it. And they kind of looked a shadow of themselves, especially in that opener against Mexico. That's the image that I think stuck with most people, and that's why they were saying, oh, South Africa's bad, blah, blah, blah. So I was nervous, given how Canada didn't look spectacular against Switzerland. And again, that could be down to the injuries at the heart of the midfield, as well as Switzerland just being a good side. But the two things in conjunction, the apparent upward trend of South Africa to a somewhat poor performance from Canada, was a little bit spooky. It was a I don't know how this will go kind of feeling. The lineup was interesting for me, as during this tournament, I hadn't been overly impressed by Tajon Buchanan on the right. I feel as though he's taken a while to grow into this tournament, so I was hoping for a Miller and Ahmed winger pairing. But Buchanan got the start, and honestly, he was fantastic in this game. He was far sharper on the ball than he was before. He was using his body well to outmuscle defenders. He was knocking the ball on and winning aerial duels, beating players on the dribble now and then. The best I'd seen of him this tournament. Moise Bombito starting was also huge. A bit of a surprise to bench Lucas Figueiredo, but I trust that Jesse Marsch knew what he was doing, given how careful he's been with Alphonso Davies at this tournament and his potential return. More on that soon. Also, Oluwaseyi was back in the starting lineup. Surprised me a bit, and you guys know what I'm going to say. I wish Promise David was out there, but clearly Marsch sees him as someone who can have a bigger impact off of the bench, and he's not necessarily wrong there. But I would just love to see what Canada looks like with Promise David out there from the beginning, his threat, rather than an impact at the end. If Canada could score earlier instead of the late push, that would be great. And mind you, with the teams we could potentially play, I doubt that's going to happen. South Africa looked a little bit disjointed in the attack. Not a lot of flow from the midfield to the attackers, and their backline looked a bit shell-shocked early in this one. I thought there was going to be a huge mistake from them eventually with the way that they were playing. They were a little bit sloppy out of the back, trying to pass their way out, and Bokazi looked especially hectic back there. But I thought Ocon was great, and the fullbacks were maybe South Africa's best players, Mudau and Modiba, were great. The South African fullbacks didn't offer a ton going forward. That was largely left to Apolis, Maseko, and Mofokeng, as Magokpa was completely iced out this game. The attack in general struggled throughout the entire match, really. Thank goodness too, because Maxime Crépeau in goal for Canada is looking a little bit not himself. But across the entire match, South Africa had an expected goals of 0.13, 6 attempts, 1 on target. Tough day for them. Of the 12 attempts Canada had, 7 of them were on target. Ronwen Williams stood strong to basically every attempt Canada had. He performed well in this game, and the times when it looked like Canada would score, Mbokazi recovered well on one occasion to deny Jonathan David, and Modiba cleared an attempt right off of the line. It doesn't get much closer than that. And Williams, he saved the follow-up actually from Buchanan. The defense performed well, And they had support from Sitole, which they needed. Not a bad performance from him. For Canada, Derek Cornelius just couldn't get the headers to fall for him once again, as he couldn't against Switzerland. He had a great opportunity in the first half. You also had what looked like a penalty at first, Mudau on Larea, but after seeing it later, it was the right call. In the heat of the moment, I thought it was a penalty, but Mudau just getting to the ball first. Thankfully, it was a inconsequential moment. Now, Canada started playing better when they made my dream substitutions, right? Bringing on Promise David first, and 5 minutes later, Alphonso Davies. He returns. He immediately looked a cut above when he was on the ball, but it wasn't perfect by any means. He's missing a bit of his explosiveness. Some of that will be probably apprehension, as he doesn't want to re-injure himself, and some of that is probably just a lack of match sharpness. But the mental lift of finally having Alphonso Davies playing in this World Cup, you could see how it lifted his teammates immediately. The energy and physical presence of Promise David, the threat of Alphonso Davies, and it really felt inevitable. The Dav boys, Dav, David Davies. 92nd minute, it finally happened. Stephen Eustaquio, born in Leamington, Ontario, raised by the Portuguese youth system, and a legend of Canadian football. A volley from the edge of the box, low past Ronwin Williams, 1-0 Canada. They advanced to the round of 16 after their first ever knockout round win and their first ever knockout round match, first ever knockout round goal. What a guy for it to come from, to happen to as well. Back around Copa America 2024, Eustaquio's dad passed away suddenly. A year before that, he lost his mother. He said himself that he was wondering what his purpose was at that time, who or what he was playing for. I'm happy for him, man. I'm glad it was him. And I feel very lucky that I get to witness my country not just playing at a World Cup, but winning matches, moving on to the next rounds. This is an incredibly special time to watch this sport in this country, and it's something that people who grew up in a country that regularly plays in and maybe even wins international tournaments will never really understand, right? They've always seen that. It's never not been that. You know, people ask me all the time whenever I have a live stream here on the channel, if Portugal and Canada were to meet, who would you support? And the answer is, of course, Canada. I was born and raised here. This is my country. My parents are from Portugal. My blood is entirely Portuguese. Actually, I have a decent amount of Algerian, probably from the Moors, but Canada is my country. I never had opportunities to support Canada at a World Cup, though. It's not that Canada was just bad. It's that they weren't getting into the tournaments, you know? Gold Cup, sure, yes, they play in that. But when it was announced that Canada would be hosting the World Cup in 2026 as a co-host, there was a feeling for many of us of, oh, thank God. We will at least die having seen Canada play at a World Cup thanks to automatic qualification. That was in 2018 that was announced, and Canada looked very different. We were ranked 122nd at the beginning of the 2018 World Cup qualifying cycle. We were finishing third in our qualifying group and missing out on the final round, not even making it to the final round of CONCACAF qualifying. Years earlier, Canada lost 8-1 to Honduras. This is the kind of stuff that we were seeing at the international level. It felt hopeless that we'd ever see them at a World Cup. So I get why people are confused when I say I would support Canada. I'd never seen Canada anywhere near this level. People have only ever seen me supporting Portugal before, right? But thankfully, I saw Canada qualify for a World Cup in 2022 on their own merit, and they are now continuing to thrive in the one that they are co-hosting. Might I remind you, they finished in second, not third. This wasn't well, you only qualified for the round of 32 because it's an expanded tournament situation. So yeah, I feel super lucky to see this. Not everyone has seen this. Not everyone comes from a country that is a football powerhouse, right? Every single game at this World Cup has been the biggest game in Canadian football history, or at least close to it. A World Cup match on home soil against Bosnia, huge. The match against Qatar was a match of survival, do or die. The match against Switzerland, ultimately non-consequential in some ways, but still big. And then this, a knockout round match and a knockout round win, man. And next, round of 16 against Netherlands or Morocco, no matter what happens, this is a huge win for us. This has been a great tournament. Anyways, guys, bit of a different daily recap given the lack of games. Figured I'd yap to you a bit, but thank you so much for watching. As always, subscribe if you want daily videos, and I'll see you soon. Later.